Okay, Ursula Purimetro, Colombia. Justin, Amy, welcome to Colombia. Back in the day, this is a question for the both of you. Back in the day when there were not so many animated films, I guess it was easier to impress or surprise the audience, but now that there are so many, it's probably more difficult. So what does it take to surprise or to impress an audience with an animated film?
That's a hard question. I mean, what's tricky is for us, we spend so long in these films, and a lot of what we're doing is we understand how all of this works, but it's impossible for us to guess how an audience is going to react to anything, which is why it's really exciting that people are seeing things and starting to react. But I think for us, the only way that we can approach that is to look at things that are exciting for us and surprising for us and impressive to us, and think about how those things work and why they're exciting to us, and then try to make choices that make us laugh and are inspiring and are fun when we see them, because the only audience that we are positive we know how they react is us. And so we really rely on those reactions and dailies and things like that to show us, like, okay, is this actually funny? Is this actually interesting? And just hope that translates when it comes out on the big screen.
Yeah, I think too, with this film, there's so much imagination, especially with the creatures and with a character like Splat. Splat was incredibly challenging to animate, but like Justin was just saying, there's so many moments where we were going into dailies and seeing first blocking pass of what an animator was bringing to the directors, and we would laugh so hard because there's times the directors will issue us a scene and they'll say, this is what we're trying to tell in this moment, and you kind of envision something that will work, and then an animator comes in with something very unexpected and in a really good way. And I feel like we had more of those moments on this film than I've seen before, it's really cool. People are making some really interesting, great choices with all of our characters, but especially when you have a character like Splat, which is just pure imagination.
I was actually going to ask you, well, you mentioned that Splat was really challenging, but I want to ask the both of you, what was the most challenging thing for you both about this film?
I think from a technical standpoint, I'd say the most challenging sequence we worked on was, I think, one of the sequences that you saw, we refer to it as sequence 290, but it's our cast of characters running on a stream of thousands of other characters. And that is so hard to do from a creative standpoint, just the physicality of selling that weight of a character while they're running for their lives on this stream. But then you also have the technical challenges of when we open up a Maya file to start animating, and it's taking 24 hours just to load the Maya file because it's so huge and complex. So we were in meetings for months trying to figure out how can we do this from a technological standpoint. And as we were animating it, we learned a lot, and we had fantastic technology people helping us, so our scenes wouldn't always take 24 hours to load. But I would say that was definitely the sequence that was probably the most challenging.
Justin?
I mean, I fully agree with Amy. I think that was probably the most technically challenging. I mean, I think for us, possibly one of the hardest things on the film is just, we as a studio will continue revising the movie until we have the best possible version of it. And so there was a lot of shifting as we sort of found the best possible version of it, and just figuring out how we were going to deliver the best possible performances. There's a big cast in this movie and a lot of creatures on screen. So there's often a lot of complexity on screen, both in terms of just what's happening in our files, but also the information that needs to be communicated and the physicality that we need to see. And we're all trying to do it through this sort of lens of a style. So there's a lot to balance, and a lot of animators in this film, more than we typically have. So a lot of it was just trying to figure out, how do we put everybody in the best position to make the best choices that we can make the the best film and tell the best story.
This is a question for Amy. Sorry, Justin. I want to know. I know that Amy has been animating for a long time, and I know that the world of animation is kind of complicated for a woman, or was. So I'd like to know whether she feels like this is a world that is welcoming women more than before.
I would say absolutely yes. When I started at the studio, I think there were probably 3 or 4 of us, and our department has grown so much. And it would be awesome when we get to a 50-50. But I think something that I'm noticing, because something I love doing is meeting with students. And I would say 20 years ago, even thinking about the females that were in my classes, there just weren't many females taking animation courses, where now when I visit schools, there are tons of females in animation classes. So I think a lot of it is just inspiring other females to want to work in this industry. The other thing I'll say is I have always felt really supported here at the studio from my leadership. So starting out, I mean, I've been at the studio, I think 22, 23 years now, but my leaders, when I think of the other heads of animation and the other supervising animators, they were always super supportive of me. And I always felt like an equal in that way. So I guess I feel fortunate that I've had so many incredible leaders that have supported me. So
back to the both of you, I guess at one point, even if we don't want to, we are inspired by something. I want to know what your inspiration was to animate this film.
Well, I mean, I think, I guess it's 2 things. One, a lot of what we've been talking about is Don's pitch for the movie was really exciting for us. I think Don has long been thinking about this idea of what is our effect as humans on the world, and more specifically, what is our relationship with the people who came before us and the people who came after us, which is a really, I think, important thing for us to be talking about right now. So that was really exciting. And then I think for Amy and I, especially as we were talking about animation on the film, we spent a long time just with our animation supervisors. Once a week, we would all just show each other stuff that we thought was interesting and inspiring. And we talked a lot about those sort of late 40s, early 50s Disney films, but we also talked a lot about French comics and how they're drawing things. And we also talked a lot about sort of more modern CG films, more modern 2D films, and just the kind of work that everybody is doing right now, and how much everybody is pushing style and pushing interesting choices. There's a lot that was inspiring for us in the show.
Yeah.
Amy?
Yeah, I mean, what Justin said, one of the most fun parts of this film for me was when Justin and I were coming up with a style guide and really going through the 40s and 50s films and dissecting what was it about those that we really loved about it. And a lot of it was the pose choices that they were making and the decisions of how animators were going from one pose to the next and how they were selling physicality in a caricatured way, but it still felt very believable. And I think that's where we were trying to have fun with the animation in this film. A lot of times when on films, we're shooting reference of ourselves or looking at reference if it's a complicated action or physicality. And it's not to say that we're copying that, but we're definitely being inspired and making choices by that reference. Where here, even though we're shooting reference, we're really trying to push beyond that and make more interesting choices. And I mean, I had a ton of fun on this film, just watching what people were coming up with as they're creating performances with these characters.
Thank you guys very much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.